iAbacus can be used to create evaluations and action plans for almost any aspect of performance or provision. Let's have a look at some of these examples. Here we have an Academy Improvement Plan. You'll notice that we've loaded it with the Common Inspection Framework, but any Abacus can be customised. In fact, this one has some additional areas down the left, some trust focus areas, so you can see that we've added finance, buildings and grounds, and SMSC and British values. The beads represent the current level of performance in each of these areas. So you can see here there's an issue with buildings and grounds. Let's have a look at some of the other examples. Here, iAbacus is used to create a risk assessment, and again the bead positions show the current level of risk. It can also be used as a troubleshooter. So in this case, we're using it to troubleshoot morale that obviously is quite low in some areas. We can see here that it's low for parents. And then finally, it can also be used for middle leaders in the aspects of responsibility. So maybe an SMSC coordinator creating an evaluation of SMSC in the academy. Or the person that's responsible for pupil premium, using it to create a review of the effectiveness of pupil premium spend. In secondary schools, we find that a real good use of iAbacus is where heads of departments create their own departmental action plans. So you can see here, the same tool with the same process and the same visual aspects used for a whole range of different purposes. Let's have a look at how iAbacus is used. As we mentioned earlier, the bead positions show the current level of performance. And to make a self-evaluation judgment in an abacus, we simply slide the bead to the appropriate level. So in this case, I might judge for this academy that leadership and management is outstanding. You'll then notice that when we position a bead, the iAbacus improvement process loads up. Let me just guide you through this quickly. Firstly, we can review the criteria to check that that judgment is accurate. We can then provide evidence to justify that judgment. We can analyse factors that are helping or hindering and affecting performance. And then of course we can plan actions to improve. Let's have a closer look at the process for this bead. Because it was loaded with the Common Inspection Framework, the criteria that's loaded into this bead is actually an Ofsted grade descriptor. If after reviewing this outstanding criteria, I want to change my judgment, I can just reposition the bead. So in this case, I might slide it into good. And here we have the good criteria. I might make a judgment that in this regard, the academy is at the top end of good. Next, I can move on to provide evidence to justify that judgment. Here, I can enter a text description summarising my evidence, but I can also upload file attachments and link through to data or surveys. In fact, any information that can be exported from one of the school's management information systems. If evidence is online, I can hyperlink to it here. Once I've justified my judgment with the evidence, I can move on to analyse factors that are affecting performance. Here, I'm able to list the helping factors, those that are pushing the bead in the right direction, but also the hindering factors, the issues or conditions, practices, circumstances, even policies or people that are pushing the bead in the wrong direction. I can also prioritise the factors that are making the biggest impact. This leads on to our action planning, because in our action planning, all we do is tackle the hindering factors and strengthen those that we're helping. Let's have a look at what we plan to do about this hindering factor. We can describe what we intend to do, who's responsible, when we know it's having a success or making an impact, and if we need to a deadline. We can even update the progress on this action and then add some evidence of impact or an update or a status report. iAbacus is collaborative, so I can invite others to share in this evaluation. I can also create reports for trustees. I can choose what to include in the report simply by clicking on these options, and then I can download a PDF that I can print or email to trustees. Let's have a look at the PDF. You can see it has the overall judgments, but then it also contains the detailed evidence, the file attachments, the help and hindering factors, and the action planning. Trustees like these reports, A, because of their simplicity, but also because the judgments are backed up with the rigours of evidence and data and analysis. We've looked at how iAbacus can be used at academy level to create a range of evaluations and action plans. Let's now look how it can be used by executives at the Multi-Academy Trust to gain operational insights into performance across the academies. Let's log in as a Trust executive. I've been invited to collaborate on a number of abaci, and I've organised them into folders. You can see this folder here contains self-evaluations and action plans for each academy. Below it, I've got the risk assessments that they've each completed, and then finally, the troubleshooting abaci that were used in each academy to improve morale. Let's combine these evaluations and action plans onto one central abacus so that we can compare performance and improvement strategies across the entire trust. To do that, we can select the abacuses individually, or we can select all those within this folder. Then we just choose Overlay to compare. The bead positions give us an immediate overview of performance, and we can clearly see here that some academies are struggling, whereas others are excelling. The number inside the bead represents the number of academies in this position. So for here we can see that under leadership and management, we've got 3 academies that have judged themselves as outstanding. We can see who they are, but we can also dig down into the detail. We can have a look at the evidence that justifies that judgment, or the factors that are affecting performance, and then indeed the actions, how that academy intends to improve. It's the same when we look at those that are struggling. We can click on the bead and then dig down into the evidence, the analysis of factors, and the action planning. We can focus in on the performance of an individual academy by using this drop-down list at the top. So for example, we could have a look at Advantage Academy, and then we can scroll through looking at the others. We can also switch to something that we call Stacked View. This stacks each abacus on top of one another so that we can just scroll down through the performance. We can do the same type of analysis for any group of abaci. Let's have a look at these risk assessments. We simply select all and then choose Overlay to compare. We're given an immediate overview of risk across the trust. We can identify those academies that are at low risk, but also those that are at high risk. We can look at the evidence behind their judgment and the factors that are affecting risk and what they plan to do about it. If we want, we can even switch to Stacked View to compare the risk by scrolling down. So there we have it. iAbacus can be used to empower individual academies to create self-evaluations and action plans for any aspect of performance, but it also provides a unique form of operational intelligence to executives at academy trusts.